So, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Sharon Whiteman, and I'm part of Manatech leadership team here in Australasia. And along with Diana Hunter and Gary Knapp, I've been co-hosting this call for many a year. Many selfish reasons for that. I love being here. I love talking Manatech. I love edifying our community because it deserves it, and it's a special one. And no better person to edify today than our friend and colleague, Karen Dennis. I'll just give you a little bit about background. Karen comes on a couple times a year, but I know some people, I'm looking at some of you may not have had the privilege of meeting her. Karen Dennis is a former nurse. She's a mother of 4 children, grandmother to 6, and that might have added to that since last time I wrote this. She studied nutrition and supplementation for many years and began her Manatech business in 2002. She reached the 6-figure income level in just over 2 years and has earned many awards in the process, including she was Associate of the Year in Australasia in 2008 and again in 2013. She was in the top International Business Builders of the Year in 2007 and 2013. And in addition, has been in the top 5 Associates of the Year 2008, 10, 12, 13, 14, 16, and 18. In 2012, she was the recipient of the Giving Spirit Award in Australasia and also inducted into the $1 Million Club, a prestigious group comprised of associates who have earned over $1 million in their Manatech business. So you asked, there's been a lot of requests for this call. Her customer care mastery training is exceptional. And, you know, success leaves clues. You don't have a successful business in our industry, in our profession, without happy, supported customers. So Karen, thank you so very much for being with us here today. I'm excited to be with you.
Thank you, Sharon. And thank you for all you've done over the many years, longer than me. You know, we're 2 of the dinosaurs in the industry now.
I know.
You know, your resilience in keeping up, interviewing people and providing this service for the whole community is beyond belief, really. And Diana and Gary, the 3 of you, it's amazing. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, it takes a village, doesn't it? So
yes, it
takes a village to have a healthy community, and that's what we are in Manatech.
It does, yes.
So let's go back to the beginning and just talk about how you came to Manatech and making those decisions and your journey to being a leader and specifically bronze presidential in Manatech.
Okay. Well, as you said, I've been interested in nutrition all my life. You know, I've taken supplements most of my adult life, from when my children were born. That's when I really started, and just been interested in nutrition, growing food for many years. And I was a nurse, which was nothing really to do with nutrition, but it was to do with caring for people. And that's something, you know, that was always a passion for me. And it was at the South Bank markets in Brisbane. So many people heard this story a million times, that I was looking after a girl with red curly hair. I turned 70 last year and I've still got some red and I'm not dyeing it. I'm very proud of that. Thank you, Manatech products. And people assumed that she was my daughter because of the red curly hair. And anyway, a guy ran after me, you know, raving on, telling me, oh, the food's not what it used to be. And subsequently lent me a tape, how technology has changed, of Dr. Omelchuk. And when I listened to that tape, I thought, well, if this is half true, I had to know more, and that the rest is history. I ended up going to a meeting at Lee and Christine Eaton's home and was just blown away by the discovery of glyconutrients and how our cells communicate and how every single thing that goes on in our bodies depends on proper cellular communication. So it was an unbelievable discovery, you know, and it still is, and it still blows me away. And that's how I started. So I became very zealous, as I do. I'm a fairly passionate person. And shortly after that, my parents had retired to the Sunshine Coast from the farm in New South Wales. And Mum went for a checkup, and suddenly after growing their own food and taking other supplements for many, many years, 30 or 40 years, Mum had heaps of health challenges. And so I said, I know the answer. She wouldn't listen to me, as mothers and family often won't. And at that time, we were very privileged. Dr. Reg McDaniel was coming to Brisbane to speak. And my father got it. My father had been a farmer and into organic farming, and he understood, he understood looking after the soil, and he understood looking after the products made sense as far as looking after the body and the health of the body, the same as looking after the soil to grow good food. So we dragged Mum to Brisbane, and after hearing Dr. Reg, that was it. She's just, would do whatever we said. So, and, as many people, you guys all knew Mum, and a lot of people on this call knew Mum, and it was a miracle. She'd left us at 89. She was 76 when she started on the products. She and Dad became presidential directors at 80. They were the oldest ones in the world at that time. So she just loved the products. She did so well, wasn't on any medication. And I think she was still giving talks at 89. The year she died, she still spoke, I think, at Anne Everingham's one day. So, yeah. So that was, I guess, seeing what happened to Mum and then seeing what happened to other people is, just kept me going. That's basically the history. I just couldn't tell enough people. I looked after quadriplegic children and children with multiple disabilities. So I managed to get some of them on the products and saw great results, and I was just committed. And I worked out how to look after people and what worked and what didn't, and that's what I hope I can help share today, Sharon. But yes, I just kept telling people. My brother got involved, other people were sharing the products. It was, you remember those days, it was so exciting.
Yeah.
And the initial starter pack was $1,375. So we had to be pretty committed to our products to build a business in those days, but we did. Yeah. And I've been on a full-time income ever since, and it's pretty incredible, really, because I was a single mum, as you mentioned, and was renting. And the last place I moved into, my friend Sue Skinner had to lend me the deposit. I was 52 and yes, not set up very well for the future. And now my life is amazing. I own my home, I own my car, I have a beautiful garden, which I love working in, and life is good, and I can still help people and work from home. And how convenient is that in this day and age?
Holy moly. Absolutely. That's such a great story. And I'm just scanning. I think this is just for everybody's awareness. This is a business focused call on being successful in helping them with their wellness. So Karen, in talking about, being successful in the Manatech business, what was you obviously had quite a rapid rise to full-time income. Did you, was that just magical, or did you have any hiccups on the way, or what kind of things have you overcome to be where you are today?
Oh gosh, so long ago, Sharon. I had heaps of hiccups. I've had continuous hiccups. Maybe some of them I won't tell you, but I did. At one stage, I'd got to presidential, and a lot of things went wrong in my life. That was the worst. And I went back a level and found it very, very difficult, and ended up moving back in with my parents when I was 56. So that wasn't very much fun. But what brought me back, and the reason a lot of that happened, were just personal things that happened in my life, nothing to do with Manatech. But oh gosh, it's hard to sort of think back about the challenges. I think probably one of the biggest challenges, to be honest, in my Manatech career in the early days, and Christine Eaton saw me through this, I give her full credit, it happened over and over, was I would get so upset when people didn't understand how important the products were and didn't remain on them, or didn't understand they needed to take more, depending on their health. That was for me the biggest personal challenge, which I think is why I've worked so hard at developing the skills of, communicating, understanding the products, and understanding that I had to help people understand the importance. I had to find a way for them to understand the importance, or they just weren't going to keep up, because the fridge would break down, or the car would break down, or, something would happen. And so the first thing to go would be, well, we'll have to stop taking these products. That's like a luxury, that's an extra. And people didn't see it as a basic necessity, as an inherent need to stay healthy. You know, they didn't see it as important. So that was I really struggled with that, and I had to learn not to care too much, basically.
Yeah, me too.
I had to learn to care, but not too much, which sounded like a horrible saying when I first heard it. I heard that from a motivational speaker. It's good to care, but not too much. And it sounded so callous and so harsh. But I got to understand it after a while because, you know, I used to get so upset and it used to mess me up, you know. I don't know if that makes sense. I hope.
Yeah, absolutely. I can, being a nurse,
Yep.
I can totally identify. And I
Yep.
have learned that I care more for people than they care for themselves. And I had to learn to recognize that and know that
Yep.
they have free will and hand that power of choice back to them. And and I think the biggest thing for me is I'd always think I'd done something wrong. If I did something different or better, or, you know, somebody, if I was important to somebody, you know, it would have been a different outcome. And I've learned that that's not true at all.
No, that's right. That's right. But it also was a challenge to me that I had to develop some skills, and it was out of that distress that I did things differently. I mean, you know, back in the earlier days, we were, for instance, just an example, our modus operandi was to lend material. I mean, that's what happened to me. I was lent a tape and I listened to a doctor, and that was very powerful, and I wanted to know more. And that's how I trained my team to do the same thing. Maybe it became a DVD or a book, you know, various things. But then a lot of the rules changed in the world, as they keep doing. And we weren't allowed to lend material. You know, it became very difficult, and it was a very challenging time. What do you lend? What do you give people? How do you get people's interest? And you know, another thing that I found was that a lot of people would be lending too much. That's been a major hiccup I found. I learned it myself. In my that's something I definitely remember. In my first year, back in those days, we were just giving out whatever, you know, people's personal stories, etc. Before all these compliancy rules came in, and I was out photocopying. I mean, poor as I was spending $50 a week photocopying stories and articles to give to people, and it didn't work. I discovered that if I gave people too much information, it was just, not everyone liked to read, not everyone wanted to watch a DVD, not everyone would even listen. And then for some people, it was just too much information, too highbrow, they never listened. Or the other thing was they thought they got everything from listening and they didn't need to know any more. It was sort of a strange thing. So I sort of changed modes over the years with the compliance laws, and just encourage people to organise a call with me or with someone else, you know, take people to a meeting or do a call on the phone. You know, one of the leaders in America, came up with this three-way call idea, and that was the turning point in my business. Three-way calls. If there was one thing that was the biggest cause of my success, it was three-way calls. So I would do them with my upline. You know, I used to go and see Lee Eaton, to take people to him, or do it on the phone. And then I started doing it with my team. So if somebody wanted to find out a bit more about health or how we could help them, say, look, we can organise a call with Karen Dennis, and they would edify me in some ways about my experience and my background, and we would do a call. And I just found that to be the most powerful thing. I think it was more powerful too than a face-to-face meeting. At one stage, I was doing a lot with New Zealand on Zoom. And I just realised after a time that wasn't working as well. I thought it would be more powerful. I hope this is what you want me to talk about.
Yes,
Sharon.
no, absolutely.
I thought it would be more, I thought it would be more powerful to be face-to-face, you know. A lot of men like face-to-face. I had that, you know, and I went along with that when they wanted it. But I didn't find it was always a good thing, because the anonymity of the phone worked better. And where, you know, they weren't feeling confronted in any way And that just is what worked for me. And of course, then I learned how to handle that on the phone, how listening is more important than talking. That was the other major breakthrough for me. And we're talking about here two subjects. We're talking about giving people the best care, but at the same time, you end up building your business, because you build a level of trust. And, without trust, you haven't got anything. And initially, people are going to start on these products because they trust you, not because they believe everything you say. They hope it's true when you explain how good these products are and what they do, but they don't necessarily believe it. They're starting on trusting you and hoping it's true. So the key to that was listening more than talking. And because I learned everything the hard way because I used to talk too much. People had come on the call and I'd start talking about how the food has changed and how there's terrible things in the atmosphere, chemicals and heavy metals and poisons and pesticides. I mean, that's been going on for many, many years, lots of things. Even if food's organic, the chemicals were blowing across from other farms. So, we're exposed to so much. So I'd be telling all this, I'd be talking about the soil, I'd be explaining glyconutrients and going deep into the science, which was also a mistake a lot of the time. And then I'd find out later in the call that, they were organic farmers. And I'd done all this raving on when they already knew a lot. And I thought, oh, okay, maybe it would have been a good idea. And I would make sweeping statements about wheat being bad, possibly. And then I found out they were wheat farmers. That was another thing. I learned a lot of things by my mistakes. So I had to learn some diplomacy and some tact. So it was always safer to listen first. And what I found when I started, so I would ask them, and people would come on the call expecting a sales spiel, I believe. I would have expected that if it was me. And I would say, hi, nice to meet you. And then I would just explain that, before I can, offer any ideas of what may help you, it'd be better if you could just tell me how you are and what's going on for you.
Yeah.
And off they would go. So I'd said just a few words. And, here's someone who's never met me telling me their life story. Some of the things people told me, I was shocked, considering I'm a perfect stranger on the other end of the phone. Yeah. And not only did I find out what they knew about nutrition or what multitude of medication they might be taking, or, I got to sort of get the whole picture. I started to realise I learned who they were, and I learned not who they were, but I got to understand their personality.
Yeah.
I could pick up things they were worried about. I got to pick up, the power of other people in their life. I just got to pick up a lot of things that I could then be more careful where I went. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And for those that are listening, that point right there where Karen made those questions and asked what was right for them is $1 million coaching. So if you take nothing else away from today, that advice is worth $1 million. So Karen, I think it's really important to analyze, because one of the things that you're pulling out of this is that you're very successful, but you didn't do everything perfect, and you just were adaptive, and you were open to reevaluating what was working, what wasn't working, to being a learner, probably a lifelong learner, and to being coachable, and even if that's coming from yourself internally. So let's fast forward to today, and what do you do now when you're introducing new people to products or helping your team do the same?
Okay, well, I found that the problem of people talking themselves out of taking the product hasn't changed over the years. So I do ongoing calls, not just that first call. And that is vitally important, because I learnt that it's really important that people don't just take what's on the label. And sometimes they'll want to do that, You know, they'll say, okay, so they decide to get the products. I then suggest, well, actually, I suggest right from the start, before we even order the products, once they've decided, yes, they're going to try the products, then I say, well, part of the deal is that I'll be guiding you getting started for as long as you want me to. They don't feel pressured that it's going to be forever. And so when your products arrive, you know, I don't want you to take anything till we have a quick chat, because you'll forget a lot of what I've said today. And I'll just guide you, because you need to start slowly. You know, this is very concentrated nutrition, and you just need to start slowly. And I'm a great believer in averting a problem rather than trying to fix it afterwards. And I found that if people just started taking full bore, and I did have that advice sometimes in my early days, let them start everything so they have a major feeling, but they can have a major detoxification. Whoops, I'm not allowed to say that word. Their body, as their immune system picks up, or their hormone levels start to improve, or, you know, any changes with better nutrition change what's going on in the body, you can start to clean out rubbish. You know, the immune system picks up and automatically starts to clean up. That's what healing and repair is. That's what the lymph does. It's, you know, it's just what your body does, is get rid of rubbish on a daily basis. And because our nutrition's low, and because most people don't have the glyconutrients in their diet, they're not cleaning up properly. So I've explained all that in the talk. I've made that point that you're going to have some cleanup. So we just start gradually and see how you go. I even tell people they may get a headache. It's better to tell them they may get a headache and then explain what a good thing it is if they do, rather than a week later they've started and they've got a massive headache and they decide to stop taking the products. So I tell them that. And I say, if you get a headache, it just means you're cleaning out toxins. If you don't get a headache, it means you're not too toxic. So either way, it's a good thing. So headaches or no headaches is good. So again, you've reassured them, you've built the trust, they feel safe. And with the hormones, you know, as their hormones build and balance with plus and omega, I'm also explaining they can have, I coined the term hormonal wobbles. That's my term, not patented, but my term. You may have a wobble.
Free to use, everybody.
And people often laugh and say, oh, I've already got those, you know. So, you know, that's a good thing when they say that, you know, they're sort of relating again. You know, it's all about relating. And, you know, you just may feel a bit emotional. And I love to tell stories. I feel that's really powerful. That's something I use very strongly. And my favourite story, when I tell that, I have different ones. Otherwise, I'd get bored if I told the same stories all the time. But my favourite one with that, I sometimes tell women, is I had a woman once who rang me up and said, I can't stop crying and nothing's wrong. You know, and I just say, you might just get a bit more emotional, or even angry or annoyed. So telling people that is good, because otherwise too, people can have this focus, oh, well, if this is such miracle stuff, I'm going to feel better next week. Well, no. You know, so this is part of understanding the slowness, and that it takes time for the body to clean up and repair and improve. So it's not all, because that's what people want to know. They say, well, how long before this will go away, or how long before I'll be better? You know, we live in a society of quick everything.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
I get cranky if it takes a minute for the internet to work, you know, or, you know how it is. We're just want everything now. So that overlaps. And if we don't understand that mentality when it comes to this, you know, we've got to be able to allay their demands. You know, we're starting on or perhaps I shouldn't say it, but we're starting on a reprogramming. That's a better way to put it, of people's understanding. They really don't know about health.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good way to put it.
Yeah, they really don't understand. And I think that's a premise, that's the biggest thing I've learned. People have no idea generally what their immune system does.
Yeah.
I probably shouldn't say this, but in the last 2 years, where's the talk about the immune system? You know, people just don't understand it, and they don't understand their own inherent how their body works and their own immune system works. So that's what you're starting off with. And getting back to where I was going with the subsequent calls, starting them gradually, finding out what they're noticing, if they had a hormonal wobble, if they had a headache, if they didn't have a headache, or they just had a bit of a dull head. And I'll tell them it's not going to be a bad headache. It's usually just a bit like dehydration, just getting rid of a few toxins. So I just tell them those things and drink more water, good water. I always cover the subject of good water and not drinking tap water. So you're starting a whole re-education program about, and it's easy to talk about that. There's chlorine in the water to kill the bugs, to protect us. But hello, we've got bugs in us and it kills them too, the ones we need to digest our food. Oh, I never thought of that, So it's just a whole, and everything you teach somebody that's new and logical builds that relationship again, that trust with you, that you know what you're talking about and the stories you tell, you know what you're talking about. You've been doing this for a long time. So the whole ongoing conversation is not about just the management of the products and how they're going and how much they need, and it's about building the trust. And the key, this has been a big thing for me, the key with that is the more they trust you, the more they'll take more product.
Yeah.
And that is a bit.
Well, we're fighting, you're finding that we're fighting that deprogramming of Western society handing over all responsibility and power for their health to someone else, some sort of hero person that puts themselves up as infallible, as in the health system or the doctor or whatever. And for people to, our biggest mission, I think, is helping people understand that they've got more power than they know to look after their well-being, to feel better, to feel more vibrant. And it's a partnership with medicine if you can find the right partner. But right now we're up against people who've been programmed to think they don't know how to look after themselves and that they are powerless in helping their health. And it's a tragedy. It's a tragedy. And, we can only help those that are ready.
Absolutely. And, for many years, people are programmed to go to the doctor, to go to synthetic medicine, basically. Something's gone wrong with your body, like something goes wrong with your car, you go to a mechanic. So if something's going wrong with your body, you go that way. And that may be necessary, and I'm not decrying that, and I'm not knocking that the medical world save lives every day. Don't get me wrong. But if people can understand what's gone wrong, I suppose you could do an analogy with your car. If you let it run out of oil, the engine's going to seize up. I've done that. So if I'd understood that and realised that light flashing was important, I would have saved myself $10,000 getting a new engine and blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
So if I can get them to understand how their body works and also what they've got coming against them, with the chemicals and the pesticides and, aspartame, unsweetened products that have got bad artificial sweeteners in it. There's so many things people have no idea about.
Yeah.
As you build a relationship with these ongoing conversations, they'll start to do things. I'd love to tell you some stories, which I'm not allowed to do, but, it's amazing what will happen as people become aware of how their bodies are and how they can make them feel better. And as that trust builds in you, as I said, people often need more than maintenance amounts.
Yeah.
And the way and people ask me that, I have a few standard answers. Well, this is the amount you would take for a young, healthy person. I said there's not many of those around actually, and they usually laugh at that because it's true. But so that's just what's missing.
Yeah.
It may not be enough to do the repair you're looking for or to achieve what you're looking for. So, but as far as increasing products as I perceive the need is, that doesn't happen in the first call. you know, you've got to take time to build the relationship and to be looking for things, and gently suggest it, because in this relationship building time, you're also beginning to understand their finances. So you can't just keep increasing if people can't afford it.
Yeah.
So you have to look at the best bang for their buck as well. And sometimes it may be better to focus on a couple of products rather than a lot of different products and have more of a few than have a small amount. But sometimes it can be better to have more of the whole core five, a small amount of the whole core five than just, you know, so I play that by ear, and that has come with knowledge and understanding and
over
what
the years.
I
so do you have a formula on like how often you touch base with someone in your own clients and also your team?
Well, in the early days, I used to do it probably, well, as soon as their products arrive, that's one thing. I just tell them, minute your products arrive, contact whoever the enroller is who's been on this, organise this call, and she'll organise a time that suits both of you, you know, to the same day if possible, and she'll contact me. And so that's, you know, that's straight away, basically. But I usually do it weekly. You know, I used to do it a bit closer, but I just don't, you know, over time, I didn't have the time to do it 3 days or 4 days. So I just go for weekly now. I say, you know, we'll have a call each week and I'll just see how you're going. And, you know, you can ask me any questions. And after a while, we'll probably move to 2 weeks. It'll be up to you. I'm always giving the power to them. It'll be up to you, you know, whatever you want. But I mean, I can tell you, and not everyone wants to do what I do. Let's be honest. I've had some ridicule about it in the past. Too hard. But I've got clients who I speak to every fortnight. I have been doing for over 2 years. Over 2 years, and I'm still having a fortnightly call. Mind you, they're spending over $1,000 a month on product.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm happy to help and guide them, and, you know, they just need that reassurance. And again, I'm sure if I didn't do these ongoing calls and build the relationships, because they've got the whole world out there talking to them, and we know how that's going. Everyone else in people's ear, and this going on and that going on. So even after they may have been taking their products for a year or even 2, they could stop if they just didn't have that reassurance. And every phone call, even after 2 years, I've got some small story, some reassurance, some reminding them. That's another thing I really encourage people to do, is to journal from the beginning, what they're noticing, what they're taking, and what they're noticing. And I do the same, obviously. So it could be 6 months down the track or 3 months down the track, and they go, oh, I haven't really noticed anything. And I say, oh, but what about your sleep? You're sleeping better, remember? Remember how your hair stopped falling out? Or whatever it may be. Your nails grew, remember? That was a sign your hormones were improving, your nails got better. So, you know, I can point those things out to remind them.
That's fantastic. And so I know this is going to be a hard one to cover. And for everybody listening today, not only do we have to manage compliance, but it's also true because we don't cure anything. Like what we're doing is giving the body nutritional building blocks for the body to do the work that it knows how to do if it has all the resources. So let's talk about some general people that might come to us wanting help. You know, if you generally have someone that has, you know, lowered energy and they're just feeling that they're not as good as they used to be, what would you do? How do you get to the place where what your recommendation might be with them to start? How does that conversation go?
Well, right. Okay. So I've done all this listening, sometimes for half an hour or longer. They'll go, and when they stop, I'll say, is there anything else? And sometimes there is, and they go for another 10 minutes. So I want to find out as much as possible. And then I may ask questions, you know, and because they may not have said things that give me all the clues I want. So I've asked them, like you just said, you know, so what's your energy like? What's your sleep like? Your nails, your hair, all those things are indications about their hormones, of course, memory and skin. You know, a lot of people, their hair is not so good. I mean, I can experience that. You know, if I don't take as much plus and omega as I need, I start to lose more hair. So, I mean, it's just basic nutrition. Your body needs a certain amount of nutrients. This is not a cure or anything. It's just what your body needs.
Yeah.
So I ask a lot of questions about that. So they're things that I can be looking for as we go along. So sometimes people are very ill and, they may not notice much, but it might be just a small thing. And that often happens. Their nails have started growing or they've got a bit harder or they're not peeling. It just can be small things like that give them some encouragement. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sharon, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I think I lost track with what you asked me.
No, that is all really good because, so if people have lower energy, what you've done is let them tell their whole story, and through that you can figure out their priorities. So
absolutely. And the hormonal issue is massive. It's probably my pet subject, immune system. And so my big four at the beginning are ambritose plus an omega. Those three, they're the big three. And if possible, I'll add GI Pro. And if possible, I'll add Catalyst then, because obviously the minerals are massively important. There's so many minerals that are missing in the Australian soil. And as we're hearing now, zinc is a major. Magnesium's missing in the Australian soil. Selenium's missing in the Australian soil. So, and you can absorb minerals without vitamins, but you can't absorb vitamins without the proper minerals as well. So the whole mineral thing is huge. But I'm going for things that are going to be really noticeable to start with if we're talking budgets. So ambritose and plus, that's easier because they come as a bundle, whether they're getting Life and Plus or ambritose complex and plus, that's such a good deal to get those. And then if possible, the omega as well. If possible, the core 5. I massively have people on the core 5. That's such a good deal, so that they've got the AO as well, which of course is very important. We've got quercetin, which is something that's been mentioned a lot lately as a very important quercetin from onions in our AO, and that's an amazingly important antioxidant. And these are the sort of things I'm doing on the calls, is reminding them why we need antioxidants. A lot of people have heard of free radicals, but they don't really know what they are. And they don't realise what's going on in their bodies on a daily basis, where they've been, and they could have been in a place where there's lots of chemicals around and they've got a lot of stuff going on in their body and they feel shocking. So it's just a whole education process, of looking after yourself and getting to the right amounts. Yes. Did you want me to go into any product stuff? Not really.
Well, I think people would want to be guided on how to help people choose the right combination based on what they're wanting to change in their health situation. Yeah. And then also, there's a bit of comment there, like, that I think is really understandable. So don't feel too bad if you've had that, where people get really concerned, worrying about other people's finances, and could possibly be projecting that on them. I know I can been guilty of that.
My mother was very guilty of that. I had to deal with that all the time with Mum. She was always worried about what they could afford. And a lot of people do, and that's very kind and very thoughtful. But what we really have to come to understand is that's our stuff. It's our stuff. Our job is to help this person, I believe. It's a moral responsibility to help them understand as best you can and prioritise. And those same people who, you may feel they can't afford what they need, maybe going and getting their hair dyed or their nails done, or, spending money on things that aren't vital to their health. So we can't turn around and say, well, it's more important that you do this than get your nails done. You can't be doing that, obviously. But if you're doing a good job of helping them understand how important it is, how can I explain it? I mean, the
one
way
thing I do, Karen, is say that one thing I've had to do, because I was fortunate in the fact that I had a big wake up call, so I lost my health. So then I was non-functional in my life that it was previously. So I had to learn where my priorities were, and now I know now that I've learned this, I've learned that I have to prioritize my health or else, number one. And that, I may not have the, a $1 million wardrobe or a $1 million car, but I'm healthy and happy in my body, those kind of conversations with people. So if you can tell, and if that's not your story, then use somebody else's story.
Yes, exactly. But, the other thing we need to remember is, getting back to this programming, is that people are programmed to expect decay. They're programmed to expect their eyesight to diminish in their 40s or younger.
Absolutely.
And one of my pet things that I find very upsetting is so many women are going into early menopause. I mean, I learned many years ago that from a doctor she was a forensic scientist, and she went into the healing modalities in the end. Very famous lady, used to be at the Gold Coast, and she said your periods should go for 40 years if your hormones are in the right balance. And that's just been a little gem I have used ever since. And I get women, I'll ask them, for instance, in that early stage, I might ask them when they got their periods, and they'll say 12 or 13. And I said, and I explained the 40-year thing. So this is someone who's starting to go into perimenopause at 42 when they should be going to 52 or 53. So it's a clue, you see. It's just something that I've learned. It's a clue that their hormones aren't so great. And I'm finding this is a huge, huge issue. And I can say, this is not a cure. I can say this.
Yeah.
I've had people who were going into menopause come out of it. And I was one. That actually, I don't usually tell that. That happened to me because I hadn't done my 40 years. So by fixing your hormones, and that's a pretty powerful message. I've got quite a lot of women that has happened. Just by having enough plus and omega, they get back to regular periods. And of course, understanding that it's not a great thing to go in early. I remember Ernie Semon's wife, Renata, way back in the early days, Renata was famous. She was stand up and say she had 36 out of 38 symptoms of menopause. And she had all these things, turn around. So that's a good thing. And they're just the livable things, but people are programmed to think it's normal. It's almost getting to the point for their bones to wear out and to have a knee reconstruction or a hip replacement. And I'm not knocking people who've had to do that.
Yeah.
But I do know that if you can look after your nutrition, you can push these things, 10, 15, 20 years down the track. I mean, mum never had any of those things, knees, hips. But she'd grown up on a farm and eaten their own produce, organic produce. She had taken supplements that hadn't been good enough to maintain her health, but then she got onto Manatech and, she was fine. So am I off the track again?
No, that's perfect. And I think Rachel's made a really good point. For some people, $50 is too much, and for some people, $200 is too much. So, it really is like what you're saying, is doing that deep listening and those deep questions.
Absolutely.
And just being with that person.
I've got one lady, mate, I've got a couple actually, been on one bottle of Plus a month for 15 years, and she won't be without it. So, you've just got to work with where people are at. I tried to get her up with Omega as well, and that didn't work, So you just have to work with where people are at. But the more trust you can build and the more ongoing care you can offer. And I often will, share some information with people after they've started on the products if they want it. But I find these days, not that many people want to read more information. If you build the trust and you look after them, that's enough. Yeah.
And so, are there any bundles that you use for particular system problems in the body that you'd recommend? And you've spoken about the Core 5.
Well, I know, and I know that's the Ambritose Complex and not the Ambritose Life. I wish Manatech would have a Core 5 bundle with the Life, but they don't. So I think that's such a great bundle. So again, it's because of budget. The Ambritose Complex is still a wonderful product. I still think it's a great product. So I I use it and a lot. I think that's a great bundle because they're getting that broad spectrum. I wish we had a few more bundles, to be honest, but anyway, we don't.
I do
So
too.
the Life and Plus and the Complex and Plus and the Core 5 is basically all we've got. I love the skincare bundle. I buy that. As everyone will tell me, and it's true, I don't go through the cleanser fast enough to buy it all the time. But I love that. I think that's a great deal, the skincare bundle, and I love the youth. I use all of the skincare, the youth and Emprazone. Emprazone's one of my favourite products. But Emprazone's a good product to buy with your loyalty too, because I look at that because it's low PV for dollar. So they're the sort of products, Omega and Emprazone, are good to get with loyalty. And that's another point we haven't discussed. I really use the loyalty program. It's a massive part of my care for people, helping them use the loyalty program, not to minimise their order, but to take extra or try other products. Get some Mana Bears, because maybe they're not going on many trips lately, but they might be going on car trips. But the Mana Bears, I just did recently with a client, a customer, his mother's 90 and having some health challenges, and he loves the products, and I suggested he get some Mana Bears for his mother, and she loves them with his loyalty, So I use the loyalty very much as a way to help people try different things or take extra. I do their budgets, and so for instance, if they are only on it, and I have got people like this, are just on Ambrotose Plus and Omega, but they need a lot. I won't say what's going on with that person, but they need a lot of those three, and I just know it's more important they take a lot of those three than take all of them. That's the way I've just decided to go. So we're getting multiple Ambrotose, they actually buy 3 lots of Ambrotose and Plus, and that each month gives them enough loyalty to get 3 Omega or 2 Omega. I can't remember now, 2 Omega, sorry, enough loyalty to get 2 Omega. So, I'm very much into strategy.
Yeah.
And that's another part of the trust thing, that I'm helping people strategize their loyalty spend to get the best bang for their buck. It's all about what's best for them, and they know that I care.
Yeah.
So again, trust, not what's best for me.
So that Ambrotose and Plus bundle is amazing, isn't it? So in what kind of situations do you add other, like say, single products to that bundle for certain health situations or health goals?
Well, I'm a vast fan of Bounce Back, and so often people have got aches and pains. So the 2 biggest things with inflammation, of course, are the Omega and the Bounce Back. So I would really, I'll often get Bounce Back as an individual product. I have had people just start on Bounce Back if inflammation happens to be a major issue. So Bounce Back, Emprazone, I just absolutely love Emprazone for any sort of skin conditions that people have got. What else? But again, I guess it's just the repeating. The Omega is an anti-inflammatory, and the vitamin D3, which is so vitally important, for the immune system, for health, and talking about people not going in the sun and how they don't get that. So there's always a story behind why they need everything, why they need the AO. If people have got a massive amount of stress on, I'll be really pushing the AO. So I make a big deal of the AO bundle. That's the case. I know Dr. Nugent has always maintained just 2 AO a day. Well, I don't, and he always said if you smoke, you might need more. Well, there's a lot of other things that you might need more too, from a stress point of view. Flying, which not many people are doing. That was always a big one. People would take extra when they were flying, and I had incredible results. People taking 4 AO a day if they were flying domestically, and 6 on an international flight, and no jet lag. That was an amazing thing that happened to many people. But we're under a lot of stress at the moment. The whole world's in chronic stress. Even if you're feeling calm, it's there, it's in the air, it's everywhere, it's underlying stress. No matter what you believe about the current situation, everybody's under a level of stress, not being able to see family, not being able to travel, you know, all sorts of things. So whenever you're under stress, you're creating more free radicals. And what do free radicals do? Free radicals attack your cells to pinch electrons. They'll even eat through and damage your DNA. So protecting you from, you know, free radical damage is a massive thing. And once you explain that to people and they can imagine what's happening to their cells, well, they'll look at the AO. And that's a great deal, the 4 bottles of AO, the 219 bundle. That saves, from memory, I think it's about between $30 and $40, something like that, just to get that bundle. And I have a lot of people on 3 AO a day ongoing now. And if something dramatic happens, you know, they might even have 4. You know, 1 each meal and 1, you know, never more than 2 at a time, but 1 each meal and 1 before bed. And I've also found, you know, if people are very stressed, even taking an AO will calm them. It's quite amazing. It's quite a calming thing. And also sport. I love sport. Sport's an amazing product in that we're actually allowed to also say now that it's anti-inflammatory, aren't we? I believe. Part of the new thing. And sport helps with grief. You know, that's a magic product that decides its hormonal pathway when you take it. So if somebody's depressed or sad, or even in grief, a lot of that around these days, sport can be a magic product. And sport's something you can take multiple ones at a time. You know, if you're in pain, because of the myrrh in sport, it helps with pain. You can take 4 at a time. You have, you know, a headache, or you're going to do a massive amount of work in the garden to stop the aches and pains afterwards, you can take 4 before you start. So I'm always, you know, getting into people's lives and you know, what's going on in their life and just suggesting a product. And after a period of time, you know, plenty of people can afford the products. There are people who can, getting back to this finance thing. It's a matter of them wanting it enough to prioritise the products, because everyone wants to feel good. Everyone wants to be well, but they've got to trust that this is going to be the answer for that to happen. So, you know, they will, oh, okay, well, I'll try that bounce back this time. You know, you tell them it's incredible. And what it does, it's not an anti-inflammatory, it actually breaks up inflammation. And so it'll really help with your pain, and it takes a few days. And I have a lot of people on bounce back, won't be without it. You know, especially if they're physical workers, you know. My woodman, he takes the bounce back.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a 6 bounce back a day gal. And
oh, well, good on you. Yep, I start the day with 4 and usually end the day with 4. So I agree with you, Sharon.
Yeah, no, and I believe, you know, genetically and my family history, there was a lot of joint problems, you know, a lot of all replacements for my parents and grandparents. And I believe that I'm holding that back way. Like I had weak knees in my 20s, right?
You had what?
Weakness in my knees in my 20s. I could feel it, right? So now I'm in my 60s and I'm walking away. So
that's
and
so
I really
good.
I really credit Bounce Back for turning that around, because they are sort of painful before bounce back, and I immediately made a priority, and it's a worthwhile priority. So it feels like it's at the hour. No, I feel we just touched the surface, even though it's been so deep and rich. It might take us a couple minutes over, but an important question I haven't covered is how do you get people to start on amounts? Like, do you tell them to start slow, or what's your advice in getting people started?
Pretty generally, I start them on half a teaspoon of Ambrotos morning and night. The only time I would do less than that is if I discovered in the talk that they had major digestive problems, like if they were celiac or, oh, am I allowed to say that? Anyway, any sort of really strong food allergies, anything like that, I may make it just a quarter of a teaspoon. And I'd really try and, if that was the case, and that's rare, usually half a teaspoon of Ambrotos twice a day. But if I do start on less, I'd want to have a call within a few days. I'd make an exception to maybe 3 days, 2 or 3 days, and just see what they noticed. I have had very extreme cases where even that was too much.
Yeah.
And I can probably think of 3 people just come to mind now where I had to go back and I had to hang on to the relationship to do this because they felt really not good even with a third or quarter of a teaspoon because their digestive system. So I need to explain it's not because you're allergic to it. And this is something we need to be really strong. And I had them licking their finger and dipping it in the ambrotos and licking it off their finger. And I've had people start on a lick of their finger once a day, end up on 6 teaspoons a day.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's not allergy, it's just they're so damaged inside.
And, you know, for people, and you might find that for people also who are wanting to improve their nutrition status while they've experienced some kind of autoimmune diagnosis, you know, and we're not treating autoimmunity, but these people realize that they need to start wake up call it working with their body. They also might need to start quite a bit. They might be the finger licking person.
Well, absolutely. I mean, you know, helping them to really understand what autoimmunity is, that they're, you know, it's such a classic with the glyconutrients because their immune system doesn't recognize them and it's attacking them. So we're now giving it the recognition, but it's going to take a little while for that to be correct, to get corrected, you know.
Yeah.
So we've just got to go gradually, you know, and anyway, so generally for 95 or 96% of the people, I start on half a teaspoon of ambrotose twice a day without any problem. I usually start people on 2+, 1 at breakfast and 1 at lunch, and 2 omega if we've got those 3. So even if they got the core 5, I would still only start them on those 3, and GI Pro if they got GI Pro. I haven't mentioned GI Pro, but it's vitally important if people can add that in. You know, ideally the core 5, or whether it's Life and the others, or whether it's the complex and core 5, the GI Pro, because, you know, that affect, you know, people have got so many bacteria short, so you need the good bacteria to help digest their food, and 70% of the immune system set up in there. So the GI Pro, so half a teaspoon of ambrotose twice a day, 2+, 2 omega, and 1 GI Pro. That would be my standard start. A week later, depending on how they are, you know, they might have had a dull headache, probably no hormonal wobbles on that level, but you'll get the odd person whose hormones are so messed up they will have had a hormonal wobble on that, but it's very rare. But it's always good if it does. Oh, isn't it? So this is great. I always make everything's great because it shows us you know, if they've had a hormonal wobble on 2+, it's pretty clear. And again, I've had the very rare case, I can think of one lady in particular in Newcastle, who we had to go back to half a plus a day to start. That's very rare. But she ended up on 12 a day.
Yeah.
New person. So, you know, so it's playing it by ear, but generally that's it. And then the next week I would go to the full teaspoon, just depending. If they're a bit fragile, I might just go to 3/4 of a teaspoon of ambrotose twice a day, go to 3+, and that would be all. You know, just I don't ever want to rush it. Go slow, because, and you know why I don't want to rush it? It's not all about rushing to get the results. It's having that time to talk to them and build the rapport as well. It's two things you're doing. You're building relationship. You might tell another story. You might ask them more about their life, you know, find out, you know, about their kids, their husband, you know, whatever. You just, and people will tell you more and more as you go along. So you're building a relationship. I've got so many good friends who I've never met. There's one woman I've been talking to she was a client of Mum's. Neither of us had ever met. Mum never met her either. I used to do 3 ways with Mum, and now I do direct, and we just get on so well. She lives at Warwick and I've never met her, and I've been talking to her for probably 15 years.
Yeah. It's amazingly, it's a rich profession, isn't it, as well?
It is. It's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah.
You know, the whole ambrotose thing too around amounts, that high touch is really important. I helped a doctor and partner who've been on Plus for like 15 years. And that's all they'd be open to. And all of a sudden there was sort of an autoimmune situation, quite fragile and quite advanced, and had required lots of meds. And, even though they'd learned about glyconutrients and immune balancing and stuff, they were never ready until recently. And they did. It was interesting, that high touch and helping them with the initial, they felt a potential worsening of symptoms at first. And when they understand the glycosylation and the process of how it was working at that deep level and started to be able to work, it's just so rewarding. So now they're understanding the process of their own body biochemistry and working themselves out how it works for them. And I just got a message last night.
That's only happening because they built the trust in you.
Yeah.
Previously.
Yeah. I've never pushed them. And even though my heart broke that they'd only take plus, because I could see they're my age and I could see the benefits if they took more, they just were into plus. But anyway, now, now I got a message last night. Now I'm going to run out in 3 days. I need more Aberto. So,
that's
and
lovely. Well done, Sharon.
Anyway, none of these things are perfect. So Karen, we've gone over an hour, and I know we could probably talk for another hour, but what's in your heart to leave people here? There's lots of in the comments, actually. I'll send you a copy because people are so grateful to have these kind of chats, and just backs everybody up. So what would you like to leave them with today? I'd
like to leave you with, you've got yes, you have, how important you are. This is such an important time to be able to help people with their health. It's shown me so clearly the last 2 years, how much people don't understand how to look after themselves and how important our message is. There's been lots of protocols talked about, and our products have them all. And that's what I'd like to leave you with. I've heard some amazing doctors talk about protocols. Can I say that? I don't know, but we need vitamin.
We'll be in trouble next.
I'm sure you've heard vitamin D is important, and we need fatty acids to absorb vitamin D. So our omega is an incredible product.
Yeah.
Quercetin is in the AO, so important. Yeah. Zinc and vitamin D are in the catalyst. We've got all these good things in our products, and people need it. So my message is, be gentle with people, listen to people, tune into them, don't push. Just be there to help people, and because people need us and they need our products.
Absolutely, Karen.
And many of my team, and even Sharon might remember, I have been saying this since 15 years ago. I believe, and I've said, in the future we're going to be defined by who's taking glyconutrients. To have the proper brain function, proper awareness. I've said that for years. Do you remember me saying that, Sharon?
I do remember that, Karen. And you're right.
Here we are. We're there.
Yeah.
So
awesome. So people do need us, and if there's the biggest takeaway that you can take away from this call today, is that even just keep correcting. Don't worry, and just move forward. Don't look back. If you learn something new today, integrate it. We're going to Karen and I'll be learning something new tomorrow, and that we can integrate. You just keep in your heart and do your best sharing this message, because people need us now, and I'd say in the next 10 years it'll be even more obvious. Karen, thank you so very much.
Thank you, Sharon. Lots of love.
Yeah, lovely to see you. So watch your emails to know who we'll have on next week. Somebody amazing will be here, and thanks for all being here. I appreciate you all.
Thanks everyone.
Bye everyone.
Bye.